Hello, I'm Rick Lewis with Phenom Hoop Report. On today's Coach's Corner, I have Coach Bobby Williams from Riverside-Martin. Welcome, Coach.
Good afternoon, Coach Lewis. Glad to have you. Glad to be here.
When it comes to coaching, you have a deep love and passion for the game. You started early on in your career. You knew exactly what you wanted to be from the very get-go, didn't you?
I had a good idea. Like a lot of guys, obviously, I realized about halfway through that high school career that I wasn't going to do a whole lot of growing. I'm kind of a small guy. I love being around the coaches. I saw things different than a lot of other folks did at a young age. So, without a doubt.
Now, Coach, you were born and raised in Roland, North Carolina. For a lot of people, they don't know where Roland, North Carolina is, but it does have a nice little landmark that a lot of people are familiar with.
Without a doubt, I tell everybody Roland, and as you said, where is that? Where is that? And so then my next question, obviously, have you ever seen south of the border? Have you ever seen the Sombrero Tower and all the signs for Pedro and stop to get fireworks? Roland is about 1 mile inside of North Carolina, right off of Interstate I-95. So if you travel I-95 or you go to the beach, you probably come fairly close to it.
And if you travel on I-95, you probably see at least 100 signs advertising south of the border, correct?
Absolutely, and that's always been a good thing. If it says 72 miles to south of the border, then I know I have 71 miles to get home. So I've always used it as a good thing.
Now, Coach, growing up in Roland, which is a very small rural community, and you said you went to Avalon Academy, which is a small private school right over across the border in South Carolina. What was it like growing up in a very small rural community and attending a small private school?
As you said, Roland, extremely small. Roland has one stoplight. A lot of people couldn't even imagine that, but there's only one stoplight in Roland. Everybody knows you, obviously, which has its good and bad. Everybody's tight-knit community and takes care of you, but also when you're growing up as a young guy, you do something wrong. Well, everybody knows that too. But Avalon was about in Dillon, South Carolina, about a mile on the other side of the state line. I was enrolled there kindergarten through 12th grade. Unfortunately, at the time when I came through, I don't know that I really had a choice, but the public school system in our area wasn't as strong at the time. So I was enrolled at Avalon, K through 12, about 250, 300 students. I graduated with 15 people. So it has its pluses and its minuses.
Now, Coach, you stated that right out of high school, you sort of had an idea what you want to go into, and you want to eventually become a basketball coach. And you attended East Carolina University, and you graduated in 1997. But your 4 years at ECU, you volunteered a lot, and you were working as an assistant coach at the middle school level while attending East Carolina. Talk about your experience as far as being a student at ECU and also being an assistant coach at the middle school level.
I came from a small area, and you come to Greenville, East Carolina University, and all the things going on. I mean, Greenville was a huge city to me at that time. From where I'm from. During that time, at that time it was called Exercise and Sports Science here at ECU. Dr. Jimmy Grimsley, a lot of folks associated with high school sports in Eastern North Carolina know that name. He was professor in the department. He was huge in football, basketball, baseball in this area, just an Eastern North Carolina icon. He would get us on at the local middle schools and to get experience. I coached middle school, helped assist middle school basketball, assist middle school baseball. Just seeing a lot of the things that the coaches went through, on a day-to-day basis. Practice might not be to 3 o'clock, but if I didn't have class, I was there at 1:30, hanging out with the PE teacher and the coach, seeing what was going on.
Coach, what was the thing that you remember the most being an assistant coach at the middle school level while you were at ECU?
I would say the enjoyment of the basketball and the baseball parts and the teaching the sport and meeting a lot of the young athletes at a young age, but then as being the assistant and not being there at the school at that time, I didn't necessarily have to worry about some of the problems and say the parents and things of that nature. So it had its pluses for sure.
Now, talk about someone paying their dues. When you graduated from ECU, you became a substitute teacher at the time, and you were also, if I'm not mistaken, you became the basketball coach at Aycock Middle School in Greenville.
Yes, sir. That was kind of my last of my middle school stops there. I graduated in December of the school year. So obviously the school year starting, it's going to be difficult to find a teaching position. I was substitute teaching. So one week I may work 4 days, the next week, 2, which was good. So I could do schedule how I wanted. Back to Dr. Grimsley again. He got me on as an assistant PE teacher at what was called St. Peter's Catholic School. It was a K-8 Catholic school here in Greenville. And go back and look at it, man, for a little K-8 school, man, we had some athletes come through there during that time. But I finished out the school year as that. And during that same time, actually, that was kind of that last year of coaching at Aycock. I became the head coach that last year. After helping out for several years, the coach and PE teacher finally says, you deserve this opportunity. It's yours this year. So that obviously meant more of, being more concerned about those school type things and issues that I didn't have to worry about before, but I learned a lot about that. I was at St. Peter's, I guess, finished that year in for 2 years. So as I said, that was a K-8 school. I was a basketball coach. I was the baseball coach. As I said, out of that group was kind of unusual. Out of that K-8 Catholic private school, 6 or 7 of those guys probably went on to play college athletics. So that was a special group to start too.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand the legwork that you have to put in to get where you are today. But in the year 2000, you became a full-time teacher, and you were also the coach at Williamson Middle School. Looking back, what was some of the lessons you learned at that experience?
A lot of the same. That was the St. Peter's was a full-time teaching job. That was Williamson was my first full-time public school job. Some guys I were in classes with at ECU were from Williamson. Talked about the small town and the community and all the support. I was familiar with Williamson following high school sports. So I went to Williamson Middle. One thing I tried to, in all my years at Williamson Middle, like a lot of people say, I didn't look at it as I was just a middle school coach. We watched film. We had structured practice plans. We had off-season workouts. I treated it as the big time, as they say. So kind of got to start there.
Well, Coach, you spent some time at the middle school level, and then finally in 2009, you got your first job as a head coach at Williamson High School, which was the last year of their existence. What was it like coaching for a program that you knew the next year wouldn't be around?
Interesting to say the least. A lot of questions. I'd kind of waited around being at the middle school for about 9 years. The head coach stepped away for another position. Got the call, and obviously was very excited because we just had a great group come through the middle school as well. So, I was going to kind of get to follow those guys that I'd been around for several years. But as you said, what's going to happen next year when we consolidate? Honestly, had a general idea that the schools that were combining, the other gentleman was probably going to go ahead and take retirement when it was time for consolidation. So, but still, what's going to happen? These spots are going to open up. It played on your mind.
Well, in 2010, you said there was 4 schools at the county level, and they merged into 2. And one of the schools was Riverside-Martin. And you were able to maintain your job and be a head coach at Riverside-Martin, which was a new school when they, I guess, consolidated. What was it like for you to say, okay, this is my opportunity to be a head coach for a long period of time at one location?
Without a doubt, Martin County schools, they went from 4 small 1A schools to 2 just a little bit bigger 1A schools. I was at Williamston and Janesville High formed Riverside-Martin. There was Roanoke and Beargrass, and they formed South Creek. During that summer, they came into Williamston High School, and we new uniforms, new spray paint, everything changed, all the colors changed. But as you said, it was kind of a new start to grow a program, to get things the way I wanted, to establish some tradition. And luckily, that very first year, we were pretty good. We won 25 games that first year. Lost into regionals, the Eastern regionals, the old format, to a great Pender team with the Addison Sproles and the Pittman, and I mean they had some guys. So that first year we were very successful in a lot of sports, and that helped kind of start it.
Well, Riverside-Martin is located in Williamson, North Carolina. It's a very small eastern rural community. What's it like coaching at a 1A school in such a small rural town? And for a lot of people out there that don't know it, if they're baseball fans, you do have 2 famous brothers that's from the town of Williamson, the Gaylord brothers, who played professional baseball. And I think also, if I'm not mistaken, Williamson's the peanut capital of the world.
Very true, very true. Small community, as you said, which is great. Our support, when it was the last year of Williamson and our now 10 years as Riverside, is tremendous. Everybody in a small town. Williamston's bigger than, say, Roland that I grew up in, but it's still a small town. At Riverside right now, we've got about 500 students. I think that first year of consolidation, we were a little over 600. But, it's a place where not a lot of folks move away. They stay around the area, that type thing. So everybody coming through, their parents, a lot of them went to school at Williamston High or Janesville High. It's just a small community again. But like you said, I said a little bit earlier, being from Roland, it's, everybody has their ideas. Everybody has their opinions. This is the way the last guy did it. Man, we aren't as good as we used to be with such and such, and we were good 2 years ago and now this year. So, but it's a small town. The baseball side, as you will, as I mentioned a couple of times, I'm assistant baseball coach as well. Obviously, the most famous folks are the Perrys, Jim and Gaylord that's come through the community. I had several others. Butch Davis is another guy that played in the majors, tons and tons of minor league guys. Overall, probably baseball is probably kind of the traditional sport in Williamston. 6 or 7 state titles over the years, but the community support, for our home games, obviously if it's a bigger game, but, when it comes playoff time, people are going to come out of the woodworks, but it's great.
Well, Coach, you spent approximately 23 years in the coaching profession, as an assistant coach at the middle school level, head coach at the middle school level, and also being a head coach at the high school level. Now, last year at Riverside-Martin, you had a pretty good season. You went 17-10, but the great thing about it is you went 10-2 in the conference, but more importantly, your whole team is built around youth. And I'm looking at your roster, and of course, you had 3 sophomores who led the way. Of course, Avion Penner averaged 20 points a game. Jalen Williams averaged 10. Jardarius Bryant averaged 8 points a game. And then you had a junior by the name of Javion Griffith that averaged 7, and a sophomore, Kashawn Manning, averaged 5. So basically, you have your whole nucleus coming back for another title run.
Yes, sir. We're excited about the opportunity. 17-10 last year was, we started a little slow. As you said, we went into last year, we're 7 or 8 guys, sophomores playing varsity, young group. Something that a lot of people don't realize with a lot of 1A schools, and it really, really hits us in Williamston, is 95% of my kids are 2-sport guys. I'd say 75% of my guys are 3-sport guys. They're all football players. I mean, we practiced 3 weeks. The first 3 weeks of public school basketball practice last year, I practiced for 3 weeks with 2 kids that were going to be on the varsity basketball team.
Wow.
And you're just waiting. A lot of year. I mean, lose on Friday night. We have tryouts and practice on Saturday and Monday, and we're opening up the season on Tuesday. There are a lot of years that we play 3 or 4 games before we practice 3 or 4 times. So, we started a little slow, put it together, had some good streaks in there. Went into the final night of the regular season with a chance to win a conference title. So, obviously the names, Avion Penner, 6'6", wing, one of the top 2022s in the state of North Carolina. He's obvious our name. I mean, he's the guy that people know. And if people don't know, they're going to, I think, soon know. Once again, being in a small area, Avion helps himself out a lot. He does play AAU with Garner Road, so that helps a lot. As a freshman, he actually tore his MCL, so he missed 75-80% of that year. Came back this past year, as you said, 20 points a game, 12 rebounds, Conference Player of the Year, first team All-District by the North Carolina Basketball Coaches Association. Got a chance to be special. We're hoping up when June 15th hits with him being a sophomore. This recruiting contact's going to pick up a little bit. He can play with no doubt. You mentioned Jalen Williams, another sophomore, 2022, rising senior now, I guess you say. 6-foot guard, probably our most athletic guy. He's a 600-yard rusher, 500 or 600-yard receiver in football. Jalen can get to the rack. When Jalen's getting to the rack and dishing to Avion or getting to the rack and kicking out to Jadarius, that's when we're at our best. He's got a chance. Jadarius Bryant, you mentioned, probably about a 5'11", 5'10", 5'11" sophomore. Jadarius has a chance to be the best shooter that I've ever coached, without a doubt. He missed about half the season last year. I think he only played in about 12 games, averaged about 9 points. Missed a lot of the season with an injury. You mentioned Javon Griffin. He'll be a rising senior, class of 2021. Another great athlete. That's kind of what I've got at Riverside a lot of times, as I said, about the combination football, basketball. I have a lot of athletes that say basketball may not necessarily be their best sport, but trying to piece them together to get done what we want to do to be successful. Javion right now has 8 or 9 FCS football offers. So obviously that'll probably be the direction he goes. Our JV team last year was 19-0. Couple little guards on that team that would have played varsity at most places. I was able to leave them down. A couple of them tough as nails. We've got a good 9th grade team. So with our rising 9th, 10th, and 11th grade class, we kind of got a chance, hopefully to make another run. And that's kind of the way I've always kind of looked at it with the 1A school. Our first year is Riverside. We had a good group and we were pretty good. Said the regionals, that type thing. We were good. The next year we won 19, 20 games the next year. And then we went on a little stretch of a couple of years where the pieces really weren't there. I also did some things to get the culture like I wanted. Got rid of some things that needed to be gotten rid of, that type thing. I had a 2017 class that we started working in when they were freshmen, and that's kind of what we're doing with this 2022 class.
You mentioned Avion Penner. How good do you think he really can be, and what level do you think he'll, finish at?
I think he has the opportunity to be the best player we've had. We've had 2 or 3 D2 players. We've had a D1 player. Marcus Freeman played at Coastal Carolina for Cliff Ellis. Avion has a chance to be the best we've had come through. Got to get a little stronger. That's been one of our biggest goals during this off season. He was having a great spring in the workout in the weight room, and then all this stuff comes along, and that type thing. So, I'm texting him all the time, what are you doing? That type thing. He has a chance. I mean, the folks I'm hearing from right now are the mid-major level. As I said, for his size, decent shooter. He's going to probably play on the wing at the college level. You know, he's not going to be he's not a back to the basket guy in the post or anything like that. So the sky's the limit, but we're excited.
Well, Coach, talk about someone paying their dues. You have paid your dues over the years. And that being said, why do you enjoy coaching so much?
I would say the day-to-day, face-to-face with the young men and with the students I teach and the other coaches I coach with and that type thing, which during this time of the things we're going through, I mean, I haven't seen some of these guys in a month and a half, 2 months face-to-face, so that's been kind of tough, yeah, patient, waiting for the right opportunity and things like that, and just having to learn how to do with that. But the day-to-day interaction, seeing the kids grow, as I said, seeing that sophomore come in, that freshman come in, that we say, hey, this is going to be our class. How good are we going to be in the next couple of years? That's kind of the excitement of it to me.
Well, Coach, looking at your resume over the years, you practice a lot of patience. How has your patience over your career impacted your patience as a coach?
I would say a lot of what I just said a little bit, when the fact that, knowing there's going to be ups and downs, what are we going to learn from it? What are we going to grow from it? Kind of like going into this season. We knew early on this season with 7 sophomores and a freshman on varsity that we were going to go through some ups and downs. We were going to be in some situations that we had to learn from. But, I tell my assistant coaches a lot of times, relax, just be patient. Things are going to be all right. Hopefully we're going to enjoy the upside of this. So, it's hard, but you kind of got to look at it that way, I guess.
Coach, looking back over your career, who's had the biggest impact on you as a coach?
I would say some of my my former high school coaches way back when at Avalon Academy. Some guys like Ron Lane and Michael Hayes, and those were some of the names back then. I live here in Greenville. During those years that, we talked about me helping with middle school basketball and things like that, I was also doing a lot of Babe Ruth baseball coaching, and had an opportunity to work in the program here in Greenville. Ron Vincent is a name, big-time baseball name in Eastern North Carolina. A lot of folks know. Just seeing the way he's done things for 40-plus years, how he deals with kids and things like that. I'd say that would be a name to throw out there, just as a few.
And Coach, what's the biggest impact that you want to leave on the players that you coach?
I'd say one of the biggest things is accountability. Being able to handle situations. Some of you have probably heard this before, the E plus R equals O, all the different events that we have going on. And we know how we want the outcome to happen, but what's going to be your response? What's going to be your response to that teacher getting on you in the classroom? What's going to be your response to those officials not being very good tonight? What's going to be your response when Coach Williams, you're in his doghouse, things like that. And being accountable, just being accountable for your actions. You do something, we're big on obviously being on time and things like that. I mean, if you're not on time, if you're late for the shoot around, if you're supposed to be there at 4:30 when the JV boys game starts and you're not there and things, you're going to be held accountable. And that's the way we do things. Sometimes people think that's a little nitpicky and things like that, but when they graduate and they get that job and they're showing up late, so being accountable, handling your responses, those are probably a couple of the big things that we talk about.
Now, Coach, for the people who haven't seen your team play, how would you describe a Bobby Williams coach team?
A lot of freelance on offense. We're typically a 4-round-1, as I said. As I mentioned earlier, my situation, a ton of athletes. So I try to put them in positions to make plays. We work on our spacing constantly, that type thing. But as I said, when you've got guards like Jalen, driving the basketball, and Javon driving the basketball, You know where JD's going to be spotting up. You know where Avion's going to be spotting up. You know, things like that. We're going to get after it. You know, it's a work in progress. Exciting group to watch. But with being a lot of them 15 years old, 14, 15, you know, we just got to be more consistent. But we get after it.
Now, Coach, last year you went 17-10, 10-2 in the conference. What's your goals and expectations for this coming season?
A lot better for sure. I was really excited about the summer. We had some big plans for the summer and some opportunities to get in a few bigger events and play some bigger schools and that type thing. You know, as I said, I kind of looked at last year as the patience and the learning year. This year we expect to compete in the East. You know, you've got those folks out there that are pretty doggone good and return a lot of folks. You know, obviously Henderson Collegiate's up there at the top with all the things that Coach Marshall has and the good job he does. But, you know, that's our goal, you know, to get there. As I said, fortunate to be in the regionals a couple of times during our 10 years. That format's changed a little bit the last few years. I love to bring the 4 teams in type regional. That was a little more exciting, but someday we may get back to that. But to challenge in the East, we've got some young guys. We've got a couple young freshmen coming in that I wanted this summer to see them with the older group and see how they fit in. But we're going to have to get, we're in the process of deciding what we're going to be able to do in Martin County as far as the workouts and things that are starting to open back up. So excited to get back to it.
Riverside-Martin is a very rural school, and I'm sure like you got great community support. Who is your big rival? I'm sure with all these small rural towns and communities down east, you have to have a big rival.
In our county, there are 2 schools in our county. So South Creek is our next closest school. I would say for years and years and years, though, during my 10 years, our biggest rival will probably be Plymouth High School, which is now known as Washington County. You know, that's the big one. That's the one that sells out, you know, the day before and that type thing. You know, that's the one that, you know, you see people show up for that one that don't show up for any others. So I'd say Washington County is probably up there. One is kind of under the radar a little bit that I really enjoy. We've developed a great rivalry with Camden High School. Mark Harnley down at Camden does an outstanding job. Those guys were in our conference when we first started as Riverside years ago. Super coach. I get a little bit fired up for that one, man. Coaching against that guy, you know, taking in that challenge. So that's become a little bit of a rivalry to us. But overall, probably the Washington County, formerly known as Plymouth.
Okay. In the past 23 years, Coach, what's the biggest lesson you've learned as a coach?
We'll go back to that patience word. How about that one? We'll go back to that for sure. I have former players come in that, you know, that maybe I was their middle school coach at Williamston Middle School, and they were like, Coach Williams, man, you sure have calmed down a lot, you know, and things of that nature. So I would say probably patience. And then it goes a little bit what I said a while ago, you know, especially say this year, for example. I look at all the young guys and, you know, it's not going to do me any good to scream and holler and whatnot. I just got to teach them a little bit better. Yeah. I got to teach them a little bit better. I got to give them an opportunity to grow up and make some decisions on their own, see how they're going to handle situations. So I would say patience.
Yeah. What's been the biggest challenges you face as a coach?
I would go back to the never knowing when you're going to be able to get your hands on your players. As I said, with, you know, us 10 out of 12.
Community.
Yes, sir. And as I said, a lot of them are 3-sport guys. They're all definitely 2-sport. I would say in the basketball program at Riverside last year, 26 players on the 2 teams. There may have only been one player that basketball was his only sport. And that was a little 5'5" guard that's the heart of us, but basketball is the only thing he plays. We talked about Penner. Penner's a good baseball player. He can sling that thing, but as I said, just, the beginning of the year, I mean, I'm there a lot of time. I was the PA announcer at the football games for years. I'm yelling and screaming for them and want them to be successful. But then you're also like, where am I going to get my hands on my guys? So, but if they're successful in one thing, a lot of times it leads to the next. So that's a positive.
Now, Coach, you mentioned Washington County and Henderson Collegiate earlier. Who are some of the other teams you think will challenge for the 1A supremacy in the eastern part of the state?
I would say in the 1A East, obviously, I would say Henderson Collegiate is probably at the top, and then the rest fall after that. Princeton High School he's got a large amount of young guys coming back. Coach Cobb does a good job with those guys. I know he had 2 or 3 sophomores that were pretty good the last couple of years. North Edgecombe, they did graduate quite a bit. They had a senior class and made that run. Those guys were in our conference years ago. Earl Sadler down at Pamlico does a tremendous job. Pamlico is in our conference. It seems we've played them in the final regular season game the last 3 years for the conference regular season title. It seems they've got a lot coming back, so it's wide open. You got your top guys that have a little bit of talent, but we're hoping to make a run. We feel like we have an opportunity if things come right.
Now, Coach, we've talked about patience. Another word that comes to mind is loyalty. Is you're the type of guy that you're from a very small town. You said you're from Roland. You went to a small private school. Although you went to ECU and that was a big town for you, but you're just comfortable in your own skin. You love being at a small school like Riverside-Martin, a 1A school. I would imagine that's where you want to retire.
Maybe so. As you said, I'm definitely comfortable. I'm used to the small town, the small surroundings, the small schools. I've never taught in a large school. I have had opportunities over the years, and I keep looking at it, and hey, I like where I'm at. I want to stay here a while. So without a doubt, it could happen. You never know. You never know what's going to open up out there, but I'm definitely happy. You got to have an administration on the teaching side that you really like and you really care for. You got to teach with folks every day that you like being around. So all those things are in a good situation right now for me.
Coach, what do you think the best thing is about coaching at a small 1A school like Riverside-Martin?
The relationships, okay, and knowing, we've talked basketball and mentioned baseball and all of that, but, I know every kid in the school. I know every kid in our school. A lot of that I get helped. I teach our 9th grade freshman PE, so I get everybody when they're coming in, but, there's not a kid at the school that I walk by that I'm not speaking to. I don't know their name, don't know the good things they do sometimes, don't know the bad things they do too, but, the relationships, I'm starting to be in it a little bit longer now that I'm starting to get my first set of sons and daughters that are starting to come through from those first classes. So that's another interesting dynamic. Just means I'm getting a little old, but I'd say the relationships and that type.
Well, Coach, the thing that's impressive to me about you is you decided early on in your career, when you started going to ECU in 1993, you graduated in 1997, you decided you want to become a basketball coach, and you volunteered going to the middle school level, and all the years that you spent at the middle school being an assistant coach, head coach, and just the years that you put into it and the love and the passion you have for the game really speaks a lot about you as a person, as a coach.
I appreciate that. And, it's what I enjoy, as I said earlier, and enjoy being around the kids, especially on the day-to-day basis. Every day is not smooth, but once that day that's not smooth, you come back the next day and try to boost them up and try to help them. We've got a lot of young men that don't necessarily have the best situations in their homes and their communities, trying to be there for them. During this stuff we have going on now, I'm trying to make contact with 2 or 3 different ones every day, to see what they're doing. And it's not necessarily telling them they need to do this for basketball. They need to do that. It's, how are you doing? What's going on? What have you been up to? So that's just kind of big to me.
And coach, also too, you're more than just a basketball coach. I mean, you're preparing these young men for the next 40 years of their life.
That's how we had. That's the way I look at it. Now, years and years ago, as I said, I mentioned patience. Maybe I didn't see that when I first started. It was all basketball, basketball, basketball. But especially with the things going on in this world today, being good young men, being good husbands, being good fathers when that time comes. That's what's most important. Hopefully they'll look back 20 years from now and, Coach Williams made me mad, made me ill, didn't like that, but that's what I needed to hear.
Outside of basketball, is there a moment that you just look back on that you say, hey, that you always remember?
As far as athletics, that type thing,
Yeah.
That's kind of a tough one, Coach Lewis. I would just say just the growing up in the small community and, everybody knowing you and that type thing, and it's like you said several times, it's just kind of what's made me okay with what I'm trying to do now. But, a lot of my time, I just tweeted out the other day, I hadn't been in that gym a long time and hadn't been on that baseball field in a long time. I'm kind of lost right now. I really not sure what to do some days.
Have you ever had that one shining moment as a coach?
I would say there's several. I would say probably, I watched one of yours the other day and you mentioned this with one of the other coaches. I was kind of thinking about, I would say probably one of our biggest wins was that first year at Riverside. When we were just beginning, as I said, we just come together. 4 communities had become 2. There were some folks that weren't necessarily very happy for, say, closing down Winston High School in Janesville. I guess they called it at the time, they called it the sectional finals. We were at Plymouth. I think we played those guys 4 times that year. Luckily, we're able to somehow beat them 4 times. But sectional final win at Plymouth, knowing we were going to go to Fayetteville the next week for the regionals on that Friday. That was kind of a big win, a proud moment in the program. A couple of years ago with the 2017 team winning, they changed the format a little bit there. That was a group, the 217 class, Markel Freeman, Jadakiss Bonds would have been a junior, but making that run, another 24 or 25 win season. That regional semifinal win, I guess, to make it to the regional finals, that would be a huge one. And then I know personally, back to me, I talked about I never grew a lot, but probably one of the biggest up there individually was when I was a senior in high school, second baseman, had a chance and played for a state title in baseball and won the state championship. So kind of all started there, I guess.
Well, Coach, the one thing I've learned from you is you have had patience over the years, but I also like your enthusiasm that you just display. You're really a tremendous coach, and I think the thing that I've been impressed with more than anything is just how you try to just coach young men to be the best that they can be. And last year you went 17-10, and we expect great things from you this coming season. But I just want to say thank you for coming on Coach's Corner today, so you could tell your story as far as your journey that it took to get you from that small town of Roland, North Carolina, now the head coach at Riverside-Martin, and where you are today.
I appreciate the opportunity, Coach Lewis. Just, want to talk about our program a little bit. Some of our kids, we are down here and then, in the corner on the other side of 95. And, you got to make a special trip sometimes to come see us. But, encourage any of the college guys, You know, I mean, Avion is obviously the name, and when it's going to pick up for him, we pray. But there are others as well. So there's others in these other sports. So keep the small communities in mind.
Thank you, Coach, for coming on.
I appreciate it, Mr. Lewis. Thank you. Thank you very much.